Welcome everyone to the council meeting, special council meeting, May the 9th, 2023. Attendance has been taken. We're all here. 2 are on Zoom, Councillor Miller and Councillor Oakley. Second thing we have to deal with is the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Councillor Chambers.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion for approval of the agenda, and it's including a delegation from Mr. Nick Wood and Harry Esmond. So I will move that the County of Brant Council agenda and addendum, including the delegation from Mr. Wood and Esmond for the May 9th, 2023 County of Brant Council meeting be approved.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interests. Do we have any? Moving on to our delegations. We have someone presenting from Corbett Land Strategies. Are they online? Yeah. Maybe before you begin to speak, you can give us your full names and who you represent, please.
That's right. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Nick Wood. I'm with Corbett Land Strategies. We're the planning consultants representing the applicant on the zoning bylaw amendment being presented today at with the subject property located at 738 Mount Pleasant Road. The delegation is just by myself. Harry Aceman is working alongside me, but we just want to know we're in full support of the staff recommendation, and if council or members of the public have any questions, we'll be more than available to answer and provide any additional information.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the delegation? The item is obviously the next piece to our agenda. Is there any questions you want to ask him before we move on? No? All right. That was a little bit short-lived. Yeah. I think what we'll do is have a motion to refer it to number 6 on the agenda, which is obviously the staff report. Councillor Pierce, Councillor Kyle, all those in favor? We'll put it right on number 6, which is next. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, let's go right on to number 6 then, please. Staff report. Who's presenting that?
Thank you. I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 623LG for 738 Mount Pleasant Road. Staff are recommending approval of this application. The subject lands are located east of Mount Pleasant Road, south of North Street, and west of 4th Street, within the geographic township of Brantford. The lands are rectangular in shape, having a frontage of approximately 100.58 meters along North Street, a frontage of 20.11 meters along Mount Pleasant Road, and a frontage of 20.11 meters along 1st Street, with an area of approximately 2,023.43 square meters. The subject lands contain a single detached dwelling, a detached garage, and the current driveway is located off North Street. The existing dwelling and detached garage will be demolished upon approval of the future consent application. The surrounding area consists of residential land uses, and the subject lands are partially serviced with municipal water and septic. This application has 2 parts. Part 1 proposes to rezone the subject lands from suburban residential, SR, to suburban residential with site-specific provision, SR 61. to permit a reduced lot frontage of 737.51 square meters, reduced area of 731.51 square meters, a reduced frontage of 7.82 meters, and a reduced exterior side yard setback of 5.0 meters in order to facilitate a severance on the subject lands. I would like to note that the lot area displayed in the report is incorrect, and it will in fact be 731.51 square meters. The bylaw has been amended to reflect the correct lot area. The reduced lot area frontage and exterior side yard setback are a result of a required 3.92 meter road widening along North Street and First Street frontages, and a 7.62 meter daylighting triangle at the southwest and southeast corner of the subject lands. The requirement was identified through the initial pre-consultation meeting, and through submission of a conceptual site plan, the applicants have identified that the lots have potential for future development. Part 2 proposes to rezone the featured severed parcel from suburban residential SR to holding suburban residential with site-specific provision H-SR61, to rezone the severed lands with a holding provision due to water servicing capacity restraints, and to permit a reduced lot area of 737.51 square meters, a reduced frontage of 7.82 meters, and a reduced exterior side yard setback of 5 meters. The holding provision is being recommended on the severed parcel due to capacity restraints within the Mount Pleasant area. The provision can be lifted once appropriate water servicing is made available, and this is similar to other holding provisions we have applied to infill lot creation in the Mount Pleasant area. The subject lands are designated as suburban residential within the County of Brant official plan and located within the secondary urban settlement area of Mount Pleasant, and zoned as suburban residential within the zoning bylaw 6116. No comments were received as part of the public circulation. It is my professional opinion that the request is appropriate and represents good planning, and therefore I am recommending that the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 623LG be approved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Can I get someone to put it on the floor so we can discuss it, please? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bell. It's on the floor. Are there any questions to the planner or to, yep, Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the planner. Your words, you just said, do you think this is good planning? I'm looking at the proposed severance. We're going to accept a reduced lot size. We're going to accept a reduced frontage. We're going to accept a reduced side, exterior side yard setback. In my world, good planning says we meet what we ask of people in our zoning bylaws. So my question, I think, is a more philosophical one. How far do you go? Are we setting a precedent here for the rest of the county to take lots like this and divide and divide and divide? What would be bad planning? Let me put it that way. What would be the limits on this that we would have not accepted, or you would not have accepted?
Through the chair, so the reason why they aren't able to meet majority of the setbacks is actually because we're requiring the road widening to be taken as well as the daylight triangles. So we do have provisions inside the zoning bylaw that when an agency requests like a road widening, it wouldn't actually take away from the lot area. So really they're recognizing it, but generally this would actually have been a condition of the consent application.
Thank you. I'm through the mayor. I'm not quite sure you're answering my question, but I'm really interested in how far we go with this process, because there are plenty of lots in the county that can go this route, and it may be quite viable, quite reasonable. But I would like to understand what freedoms, what facility we have as a council to challenge on this. Do we just accept that this is good planning?
Matt?
Sure. Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, that's a great question. We look at every one of these planning applications on their own merit. Every property is going to be unique. What is too far on one property might be good planning on another. So we've got to look at them individually. One of the considerations we have when we're looking at what good planning is, does it fit within the area? Are there other circumstances that are similar to it? Does it meet the character of the community? So these are the kinds of things that Lauren and our planners look at to make their analysis on whether or not it's good planning. But excellent question.
May I continue?
Councillor Bell, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did notice some of the commentary that we got in our package actually does challenge whether there should be anything more than just a single dwelling on this property. But let me ask the question that goes further. How do you get septic systems onto these two lots? If I see the building envelope, I see no room on either of these two lots for a typical septic system. And my second question will be, how do you get access to these two lots?
Through the chair. So access is being proposed off of First Street and Mount Pleasant Road, which is consistent with Mount Pleasant Road is consistent with where current access is for other properties. As well, through the future consent application, there will be a site development plan that's required to display the building envelope and how the septic is going to be accommodated.
Councillor Bell?
I can't conceive of it. I know typically how big a septic system is for a house of this size, and I just cannot conceive, given the drawing that we have in front of us, that they can all be accommodated. But I'll stand and wait for the county staff to do their work. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Lauren or to Matt, whoever can answer. So kind of along the same lines as Councillor Bell, he was drawing attention to the comments that were received specifically from the Six Nations. I know there was no comments received from the public, but there were some fairly significant comments from Six Nations, and I don't see here where those have been addressed or acknowledged and how that's perhaps being handled. So just curious as to how, because there's this one, and then later on in our package, I know there was some others too with similar, where there is comments that have been received, and it's not really clear how those are being addressed.
Through the chair, so I believe the comment you're referring to is going to be the tree protection and the replanting. So that will be another requirement of the future consent application. They'll have to display what trees currently exist within the building envelope and how they're going to accommodate replacement.
Other questions? Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the planner. The report is very comprehensive and well done, and I'm not in any way being critical of the report. I'm just suggesting perhaps, and this is for all the planners, since we are changing our system in that we're having a public hearing and then the report is going directly to council with recommendations, I'm hoping that in the planner's report that go to council, there will be some recognition of what, if anything, transpired at the public hearing the previous month. There may be some comments from the public, there may be no comments from the public, but it would be nice to have some reference in the planning reports to the public hearing which connects the two. And hopefully as we go forward, the planners can keep that in mind.
Any other comments? So the recommendation before us is the rezoning of this property. Staff report sees it as good planning. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And it carries. Thank you. Moving on to 6.2. Pam, you have this.
Good evening, Mayor Bailey and County Council. Well, here we go again. I want to take an opportunity to introduce Emily Sousa. She's one of our new planners. I don't know that you have met her yet. I don't know if you've had an application yet before. PDC. But this is Emily. She's one of our new planners, one of our new hires. She has a background from the University of Guelph and also has worked with OFA. So she is, we're lucky to have her, not only as a development planner, but also in terms of some policy. And as we have our policy team right now working very heavily on the official plan and the interim control bylaw in St. George, we've asked Emily to help with this report. So we've divided and conquered. So this is Emily, and she's going to be presenting on some of the new PPS tonight. So with that, I will say that this report is one, of course, that is part of the province's initiative to build 1.5 million new homes by 2031 in Ontario. And the report in front of you provides an overview of both Bill 97, which comments were due on the ERO on May 6th. And as that was only a 30-day window for review, and honestly did not have a large overarching impact, but more or less finalized things that were outstanding from Bill 23 and Bill 109. We won't be going over Bill 97 this evening, but rather focusing on the new proposed provincial planning statement, which has the most effect to the county of Brant. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily. She's going to walk through some of the general changes, and then I will be back to share with you what's probably going to be the biggest change in the county of Brant.
Perfect. Thank you, Pam, for that introduction. I'm not sure. There we go. Okay, so as Pam had mentioned, focus of today's presentation and discussion will be on the proposed provincial planning statement. So that is different from the provincial policy statement, which is currently available on the Environmental Registry for comment. So the ERO posting proposes to repeal a Place to Grow Act and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And of course, it also proposes to update the PPS 2020 by integrating policies from each of the PPS and the growth plan into a single province-wide planning policy framework. So the province proposes to release the final policies this coming fall of 2023, and municipalities are expected to update their official plans to incorporate these policies at the time of their scheduled review. So briefly, I'll be discussing the biggest proposed changes in the current draft PPS. So first is the removal of the Municipal Comprehensive Review, or MCR, process, which was required to ensure population and employment projections, intensification opportunities, infrastructure improvements, and other growth management matters were assessed and planned for at the time of an official plan review. Now these growth-related planning matters must be addressed through official plan amendments. So this proposal also seeks to repeal the growth plan, as mentioned, and includes requiring municipalities to plan for a minimum of 25 years for their planning horizons, and removing intensification targets within built-up areas. Municipalities can continue to use their current 2051 growth forecasts if their official plan is in progress, and can move toward using their own forecasts in future official plan updates. Further, the proposal has altered provincial policy language so as to be more flexible rather than prescriptive in interpretation and implementation of the policies described for municipalities. So the proposal also allows municipalities to create or expand settlement areas at any time as part of an official plan update. Criteria to do so has been softened, but conditions to expand still exist. Further changes to the definition of employment areas has now excluded commercial and institutional uses, and currently only applies as proposed to manufacturing, warehousing, movement of goods, and accessory commercial uses to these identified uses. The proposal includes policies to remove or convert employment lands to alternative uses outside of the Municipal Comprehensive Review if it can be justified under certain criteria. And official plan amendments will be required to permit other uses, such as commercial or institutional uses in these employment areas if these uses do not meet the provincial definition. Further, on the topic of housing, the draft provincial policy statement, or provincial planning statement, has removed any definitions and all references to affordable housing. This means that policies and definitions will be up to municipalities to draft and define. Please note that the province has yet to release draft revised policies for natural heritage and natural heritage systems as part of this proposal. The posting does state that they are still under review and will be posted at a later date for review and comment. There are some changes to cultural heritage not noted in the report, but that staff would like to make the committee aware of. Regarding changes to cultural heritage, proposed changes focus solely on protecting already quote unquote protected heritage properties. There is a de-emphasis on identifying and evaluating other heritage resources, which may also be worthy of protection. Staff note that there are also opportunities to leverage the development review process in a proactive way for the purposes of identification and evaluation of cultural heritage resources that could translate into the adaptive reuse of heritage buildings. Further proposed changes to these provincial policies also create redundancies in the heritage conservation policy framework, as draft policies make no mention to municipally listed properties and essentially render the listing process moot. On this point, staff note that a simplified but multifaceted approach to heritage conservation that looks to identify, evaluate, and protect built heritage resources would be an option, and we could put this back to the province as part of the review. And I will pass it to Pam now to speak to changes in the agricultural area.
Thanks, Emily. So probably the biggest changes for the County of Brant with the new proposed planning statement will be that around increased opportunities for accessory residential units, ARUs, and then new policies for lot creation in the agricultural area. So the new PPS is proposing more opportunities for ARUs in our prime ag areas and will allow up to 2 ARUs in addition to the principal dwelling on each agricultural parcel, subject to criteria. So currently the PPS allows for 2 ARUs in urban areas, and we have limited opportunities currently of 1 ARU in the agricultural area. So this will increase to another. There's also a very strange proposed policy which outlines that ARUs may be severed from the principal dwelling, subject to criteria. Now, we're not really sure if this is directed to the severances of lots, which I'll discuss in a moment, or if this is a policy that will provide opportunities for each new lot to then sever ARUs. So we think there is some confusion and some clarity that needs to happen in the language of the new PPS, and those comments are in the report. And then probably most importantly is the proposed lot creation for agricultural lands for non-agricultural purposes. So the current PPS and current and proposed official plan policies in the County of Brant aim to protect agricultural areas for food production and direct non-agricultural development to settlement areas. However, the new proposed PPS would permit opportunities for 3 new lot creations on each agricultural parcel, subject to criteria. And I should mention this is agricultural parcel and not farm. So there's currently no definition of agriculture in the proposed PPS, but there is a definition of agricultural uses, which outlines things like growing crops and livestock. So it's estimated by our planning staff that under this new proposed policy regime that all lands that are either designated or zoned agriculture, or maybe those that have a garden or a beehive, could be subject to the policies, including parcels that are 2+ acres in size. So again, these assumptions should be confirmed by the province. And it should also be noted that the official plans and zoning bylaws shall not contain provisions more restrictive than these proposed policies. So meaning that the county will have no choice but to permit these provincial policies. So what does that mean for the County of Brant? Well, this new proposed policy change has the potential to create just under 8,000 new lots based on our OP designation and fragment our land base further. So the chart on the screen and in the report identifies that this could include 280 lots from parcels that are currently 2 to 3 acres in size, 150 lots that could be created from holdings that are currently 3 to 4 acres in size, and then just over 7,000 lots that could be created from current agricultural properties that are 4 acres or larger in size. So that's a total of 7,768 new lots, which would most likely each be about an acre in size. Now, combining the new proposed ARU policy and the new lot creation policy, this could also mean 3 residential units on each of these new lots and existing lots in the agricultural area. So for example, a typical farm or agricultural lot that may currently have one dwelling or one dwelling in an ARU, you could see a total of 12 units in total on that parcel created. So that would be the existing dwelling plus 2 ARUs, and then the 3 new dwellings plus 2 ARUs on each of those. So of course, with this, we will have impacts to our countryside and landscape in the County of Brant and really across the province of Ontario. So these are just some graphics to help explain, and they're actually from a 1970s planning textbook, and they defined cluster development versus scattered development. So you can see that in clustered development, that is what our rural planning policy regime has enforced for the last 25 plus years. And development in hamlets and settlement areas has limited effects on farming practices and minimum distance separation, or MDS. Now, the scattered development, or the creation of lots on multiple agricultural properties, would obviously create land use conflicts for normal farm practices and increase MDS across the country and the province. So in terms of MDS, what scattered development in the agricultural area does is it limits livestock opportunities, pushing them to the middle of farms or the middle of concessions, and creates limited abilities to expand or create new livestock. So it is estimated that this new policy regime could be the demise of livestock in Ontario. So we've done some of our random MDS mapping exercises in the County of Brant, just to show you what this might look like and how this could indeed limit opportunities for our County of Brant farmers. So I should mention that this, at this time, Emily and I visited the Agriculture Advisory Committee a couple weeks ago and provided them similar information, and they did not support the new proposed lot creation policies, and you'll see that wording from the Agriculture Advisory Committee in the resolutions of this report. So I do want to outline, though, that the proposed ARU and lot creation policies could hold much benefit for many individual farmers and agricultural property owners in the County of Brant and across Ontario. As for many, this could be an opportunity to reduce debt and financially assist farming operations. However, there are also a number of impacts of scattered residential lot creation in the agricultural areas, which for the betterment of farming in the County of Brant should be considered by County Council. So for example, there will be increased conflict with farming practices. There will be increased MDS restrictions, limiting placement and expansion of livestock operations. There could be a reduction in the number of new units constructed in settlement areas where servicing exists and has been invested in. There are also questions around groundwater and nitrates, and questions around opportunities for aggregates and where they will exist in the agricultural area. And finally, as a council, you may want to consider the increased demands to the county on provided for rural services such as snow plowing, waste collection, EMS, road maintenance, etc. So this takes us to the end of our presentation, but as you're now pondering these possible impacts to the new PPS and how it will affect the County of Brant, we do want you to know that county staff are thinking about when or if these policies are approved, how administration will deal with the increase of development. And in particular, we're working in the background on the next steps to be prepared. So we're thinking about how the County of Brant handles the increase of consent applications. We're thinking about the resources and processes, including opportunities for perhaps further delegating authorities to staff, as surely our Committee of Adjustment will not be able to handle this additional workload. We're thinking about A9 zoning and new zoning of remaining agricultural lands. We're of course thinking about OLT appeals, and we are pondering application costs and revenue opportunities for the county. So for tonight, we're just bringing this information forward to you. And we will wait and see what happens with the province, what they approve in the fall, and if needed, we will be back with further plans and action as soon as possible on managing this change. So before County Council are the resolutions, and again, Brandon is with us tonight if you have questions specifically about the OP and how this will affect the new OP, and Emily and I will try to answer any other questions you have on the province's provincial planning statement. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for a wonderful report. I don't pretend to understand all of it. Your highlights terrify me. Emily, welcome to the County of Brant. Sorry that it has to be clouded by something as confusing as this report. It's a lot of new everything. I don't feel very safe in most of it. I think the County of Brant has a history of managing their farms and managing their properties, and they know how that works. We spend a lot of time putting time and money into our heritage districts and our heritage homes. I feel like we've dropped the ball on a few things. I don't know what's going to stick and what's not going to stick, but your highlights do terrify me. And as we get into this document more and understand more about what's in this report, I hope it gets better and I feel better about it. Are there any questions for the report? Councillor, how is your first?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. In agreement with the mayor, it's going to take some time to digest this. We'll have a million questions later. I wanted to rewind to the part about affordable housing. Specifically, that's one that I can actually wrap my head around a little. And so if the province is avoiding creating a definition for affordable housing, and it's left to each individual municipality, as you said, can you give us a glimpse into the future of what steps we could take to establish our own policy under that subject? Thanks.
Through the mayor, great question. I don't have all the answers yet. We're still trying to wrap our head around all these changes as well. I will say that our policy team has taken a good look at the new PPS, and they've tried to wrap as much as they can into the new OP that will be coming forward at the end of the month to County Council. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to see if he has any other insight onto what they have changed in terms of the policy regime with the new OP.
Sure, thank you, Pam. Through the mayor, so specific to affordable housing, we will be including a specific definition in the new official plan for affordable housing, and it reflects the CMHC definition. So that would be going forward with our new official plan to the province and kind of at their discretion to approve. But we're trying to keep that. We know that's an important component of planning here in the County of Brant, and we're trying to make sure that that's known in our official plan.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Pam. I'm just reading in the proposed PPS, section 2.2 on housing, and there's a subtlety of a change of language. There are words like shall and should, and they're very subtle, well, not actually very subtle, but they're differences in meanings. Item 1 on that page says planning authorities, and I guess that's us, shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options. So to follow up on Councillor Howard's question, how do we make sure that we have that complete range of housing? What tools do we have available to make developers do what we want them to do in terms of meeting the demands? Because further down the page, it says we should provide an appropriate mix and range of employment, institutional and broader mixed uses for long-term needs, and somewhere down the way it talks about providing for what is needed locally, not what people from the greater Toronto area want. They want to move to Paris or to the county, that's great, but there are people living in the county that are looking for something. I want to know, how do we help them get what they want?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bell, great question. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon in a minute to just outline what the new official plan says in that regard in terms of mixed styles of housing and different opportunities. But I will say part and parcel is to have that good policy regime at the County of Brant, and have a policy regime that encourages, enhances, that creates opportunities for our developers to create the types of housing that we need here locally. So Brandon, would you mind providing us a quick overview of what the new OP says?
Absolutely, thank you, Pam. Through the mayor, so the new official plan is putting in some more rigid policy specific to housing types. So what we've done is broadened we've given some freedom to the types of housing that can be built here in the County of Brant. A lot of our policy regime right now speaks just to single detached, semi-detached towns, and that's what we see being developed, and that's also popular with the market. But we're looking at ways of using our policies to incentivize other types of housing. So we're looking at things like reductions in development charges, being able to provide those in a way that would, I guess, incentivize smaller units. That's one of the things we're considering to put into the final official plan. So we are kind of playing around with their new definition of housing options, and they do have a full list of housing typologies in there. So it's beyond just single semis towns. It speaks to tiny homes. It speaks to additional residential units. Those things will be permitted and they'll be prioritized, but it will be a way of trying to find incentives to actually have those developers and the people that are building for us here in the County of Brant to bite on that. And that will be kind of the key to the official plan will be that implementation piece.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brandon. This is a really difficult problem. I can see it. If I look around now, and all the development applications that we've had across the table, not one of them from a major developer has tackled the issue of housing that people in Paris and other parts of the county are looking for. It's providing what people want from outside. And I'm still not convinced that we've got the tools available. I'm not convinced that we've actually had the right conversation with major developers. I don't know whether they're actually ever going to do it, or whether the burden is going to fully fall onto the municipalities, whether it's ourselves or together with Brantford. So I would have liked to have seen stronger wording, because it does say shall, and just taking that shall means we have to do it. Shall means we have to provide it, but I don't see how we do.
Yeah, Councillor Bell, I do believe we have had the right conversations with the builders, and they just don't want any part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's my feeling as well. So we have to then, change the paradigm and deal with other people. And can planning please bring forward a report or their thoughts about how we change that paradigm, and recognise that it's not going to be the big developers, but there is also an element there of they've got all the land. How do we get land to provide to people that will actually build the kind of properties that a large proportion of our community are looking for? And that, I think, is a real big challenge.
Matt, do you have something to add?
It's definitely through the mayor. It's definitely something we look for in all of our new subdivisions, especially. There are two developments, one of which I can tell you about that does incorporate an affordable housing component, and that's the Cordon application. It's being reviewed, so it's public information. As part of that application, they are proposing an affordable housing component, and then there's another local developer that's working on another subdivision, still working on it being complete, but it is also proposing an affordable housing component. And I think the reason we're seeing that being included is because this council has made it very clear that it's very important to you, and so I think I'm hopeful that despite the provincial policy changing, we still get that kind of development here in the county.
Thank you, Matt. I think just one final comment. I mean, this is not uniquely Paris. I mean, if we look at the call for affordable accommodation, there's a large number of people in St. George, there's a large number of people in Burford that are looking for accommodation. And I think we need to. I think we really do have to step up our game and make it possible.
Yeah, I think too we have to get off the affordability thing and back to the geared to income thing. We're setting people up to fail, because there's a lot of people. There's a whole generation of people that work their whole life that are just dealing with their old age and their CPP, and it doesn't matter how affordable something appears to a builder. If you've only got $2,200 a month to live on, and I mean, not that we are responsible for the way people have led their lives or invested their money, but there's a reality at the end of the day. There's some people that only have $3,000 a month, and that's just the long and short of it. And why should they? What are they to do? What are we supposed to be telling them to do? I mean, there's waiting lists of 5-7 years for our housing now for the city and the county. And it's just such a gap. And I don't know whether they have just lived in a different world for too long. I don't know whether they don't understand that there is a whole generation of people coming up that just don't have the money. It's not that they don't want to pay the money. There's no way of pulling it out of a magic pocket. So that's what we have to go back and discuss: is affordable to geared to income. You know, you get to a certain point in your life when you have no more ability to make more money. You deal with what you've done with your life and what you have coming in every month, and that's a very sad realization to have people that have worked their whole life in the county of Brant that now have to worry about what's going to happen. And it is up to this council to find out I don't know what the answer is, but it is on our shoulders to find that out and to figure that out. Councillor Chambers and then Councillor House.
Mr. Mayor, it sounds like a good rationale for retirement lots in the countryside. I got a question to the policy people. The last couple of provincial policy statements had the language "must be consistent with," so our local policies had to be consistent with provincial policy. Prior to that language, it was "had to have regard for," which was a little softer. I read somewhere, or maybe I dreamt it, that the new provincial policy is going back to the "must have regard for" rather than "must be consistent with." If that's the case, does that allow the municipalities to overlay a set of their own policies over the provincial policy statement that has bearing rather than would be kicked away if it had to be consistent with the provincial policy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Chambers, great question. I don't know the answer, but we'll find it out and get back to County Council on that. I do know that in specific sections like the agricultural lot creations, it's gone even further to say that you can't be more restrictive, right? So I don't want to give you a blanket answer, but we'll look into it further and get you some more information. Yep, Emily's got more.
Thank you, through the chair. So just because I have the draft provincial planning statement in front of me, so it does state that under legislative authority, it is remaining with "shall be consistent with" policy statements issued under the Planning Act. So of course, municipalities moving forward would have to render planning decisions that are consistent with policies outlined here.
So if just to follow, so if the policy does come into effect with the vast number of agricultural severances that I'm telling you, there will be a lineup, even though farmers don't want urbanites in the agricultural areas, the financial enticement of having 3 lots in your back pocket to sell if you need it is an incredible enticement. And there will be some very interesting committee of adjustment meetings when the two sides line up against each other, because that's the way it used to be. I really feel that that policy will wash away. I cannot see that becomes in effect across Ontario. I don't think the agricultural community will stand for it, but if it does, be prepared. The other question that I have is with regard to the comprehensive municipal statement, or what do we call that document that we have. It seems to me that they are moving away from that expensive consultant type generated document and leaving that maybe a little bit more with the municipalities. So that may be a little bit, give municipalities a little bit more flexibility in kind of crafting community development policies. So there are good things and bad things, but as far as having 3 severances on every agricultural parcel, that is really going to be interesting.
Councillor House, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna bounce back to the affordable housing topic just a little bit more, if you don't mind. And Matt Vaughn's comment brought this question to my mind, and we do appreciate and value when developers volunteer to have a portion of their dwellings in some form of capital A or small a affordable or attainable housing styles. We do appreciate when they volunteer to do that. With our new official plan coming forward, would there be an opportunity for this council to create a future bylaw or policy that requires developers to do a portion of their number of units in a modest rental housing product to serve the needs of our community?
Through the mayor, I think that question would be better directed at Brandon. I know from reviewing it, we're definitely encouraging it. I'm just not certain about the shall kind of statements, but I'll let Brandon answer that one.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Through the mayor, so there are ways for us. Actually, I guess I'll start this by saying, so the new PPS and the PPS as it is, it represents a minimum standard. So we can choose things that are reflective of important, I guess, objectives for the municipality, so affordable housing, and we can go beyond those minimum standards with our own policies. The trick is with the definitions that they provide, we have to find definitions or things that can complement that, but then work in our favor. So the definition for housing options, for example, they're saying that you shall provide housing options in your developments. They provide kind of a list of those options. So we need to make sure that then our official plan has policies that reflect the necessity of providing a variety of those options, like a variety of those housing types within singular developments, and looking at areas on a small scale and a larger scale. We've done that with the new official plan. We're trying to lead people that way, but again, policies aren't prescriptive in that manner. You have to prescribe things. So I think looking at kind of the flexibility that our zoning bylaw can provide to people, as well as, like I say, incentives, would be an important kind of thing for council to consider in the future. Even simple things as, and we've kind of considered this, adding this into the final official plan. There used to be a tool called height and density bonusing in the Planning Act. So taking a tool like that the province has used in the past and using it in our own way. So we're talking about limiting height in the county of Brant, but say a developer wants to go beyond that height, instead of maybe amending the official plan, they can do it by providing affordable units or attainable units. So we're trying to find that balance to use some kind of tools that the province has already used, but be creative in that manner. So I think beyond the official plan policies, I think we have a good base for that. And then, like I say, it will be that implementation, those implementation pieces that will be key to ensure that we're getting what we are looking for. And we know that in some cases with our developments, we're not. And you're bound by your policy regime. So I do think that new official plan will help us a lot with that.
Councillor Miller, Councillor Oakley, have I missed your hands or nothing?
I'm okay. I concur with Councillor Hauser.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Coleman first. Okay, Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Not so much a question, but more of a comment. And I can certainly appreciate that there are some benefits to the 3-lot creation. I know for us it would be great to have 3 lots we could sever. However, I think it's important that we keep in perspective and we look further down the road. I think that part of our role as council is to be setting up the municipality for the benefit of the generations to come. So if I set aside what would be my short-term gain from having that money in my back pocket and look at the potential that creating those 3 lots could cause even on our own farm, just to handcuff my kids or my grandkids someday from expanding our livestock operation, even things down to safety on the road, adding potentially 12 new laneways for our, 3 or 4 properties along the same road on an already busy road. Like there's a lot of things that I think could be potentially impacted by this policy. And I'm really hoping that the province is listening to some of these concerns from the municipalities and from the general farm organizations and some of the groups that are saying, hey, wait a minute, yeah, there's some short-term benefits here, but down the road, this could be a disaster. So I'm hoping that they're thinking about that and there's some changes.
Thank you, Councillor Cobb. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, a couple things. There's no questions on my comments. And the first one we'll start is on affordable housing. I'm a business owner. I run a business and I'm there to make a profit. It's as simple as that. And I think until the government and we ever work with the builders to help them make these affordable housing realistic so that they can still make a profit and serve the community at the same time. But as a business owner, I'm there for the profit. It's as simple as that. I remember sitting here one night at a planning meeting. I come in late and I sat beside a developer. He was trying to develop a piece of property out here, and I won't name him. He said some descriptive words to me. I can't say them right now. But he says if they don't like it, they should have bought that property themselves. It's as simple as that. They're there to make a profit. And I feel for you, but we got to work together somehow, whether it's our own council or the provincial government or whatever. But they're there to make. Now, severances. Councillor Chambers and Councillor Kyle hit it right on the head. But I had a neighbor come and tell me. He says, Coleman, what are you going to do? You've got 9 severances. That's pretty good retirement fund. Could go somewhere else. Don't have to worry about the traffic in County Road 18 or Putttown Road or wherever. There's other areas in the province you can go and farm and don't have to worry about the traffic. So I think it's going to be hard. And Robert's right. That putting that cash in front of you. I know what these lots are bringing. I could build a new barn somewhere else. Yeah. So it will be done. I did support the recognition that we do not at the Agriculture County support the 3 lots. But it will be tough to some farmers that say this is a way we can cash in and reap some benefits. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah, it's all true. It's going to be crazy. I hope for our sake that Robert's right and that it's not going to happen, but some version of it's going to happen, which is going to open it up just enough to make our lives quite interesting and difficult. Maybe the county, we don't have to turn a profit. We can maybe buy some of this severed farm property and build our own little geared to income housing, and we don't have to show a profit. We just have to do the right thing for the people that can't afford to live in the county of Brant anymore. So maybe we should be buying some of those severed lots in St. George, and if there's any left in Paris and Burford when they get water. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for the report. It was wonderful. Oh, I need to have someone move this recommendation. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Howes. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. As they said, Emily, welcome to the county. You'll like it. We do. Number 7, we have no communications. We have no other business. And I'm going to call on Councillor Coleman to take us to a faraway place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Garneau, that the committee convene in camera to discuss litigation matters and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege, 70 and 72 Beverly West Street, SBA plan, subdivision 23 Beverly Street East.
All those in favor of following Councillor Coleman? Opposed? Carried. We're now going to go in camera. Okay, we are back in open session and we are moving on to number 10 on the agenda, which is bylaws. Counselor Howes, you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Oakley, the bylaws 54-23 to 55-23 be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading? Second reading, please, Counselor Howes.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Oakley, the bylaws 54-23 to 55-23 be read a second time, and all clauses and preambles be adopted.
Are there any questions for the second reading? Seeing none. Third reading, please, Counselor Howes. Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor? Yep. Third reading, please, Counselor Howes.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Oakley, the bylaws 54-23 to 55-23 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading? Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Takes us to number 11 on the agenda, which is the next meeting is going to be Tuesday, May the 23rd at 6 o'clock. Anything else for the betterment of the county of Brant before we ask to adjournment? Is it tonight?
Is that tonight?
Oh, tomorrow. All right.